Good day and a very warm welcome. All of you listening to this one is listening to a recording. We had some technical problems last night and I couldn't record the webinar. So I'm just going to use the same slides again, and I'm going to give you all the information that I gave the other people last night. We're just going to skip the housekeeping because you don't need that at this time. I have slides of this presentation available. If you need that, please contact me and I will send you some slides. So you are of course in listening only mode, so if you have questions you'll have to email me, but I have the questions that people asked last night and I will answer them on this recording as well. So I'll keep you busy for about 50 minutes and then after that I will answer the questions, so just to give you a time frame of the webinar. So the next slide you don't need at this time. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Marga Gray. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I have been an OT with a keen interest in sensory integration and sensory processing for many years. I was trained in sensory integration postgraduate in the 80s, which is probably before many of you were born. The terminology and the nosology have changed over the years. But I find it so exciting as we can pinpoint many more issues and much more accurately than before. And so we can provide effective strategies for many more people to help children, families and adults. So I'm also a mother of 3 adult children and 4 beautiful grandchildren. And as you can probably hear, I was born and lived most of my life in South Africa. At present, I'm an Australian citizen living in the eastern suburbs of Brisbane. My latest focus is Coordikids, as I want to help as many children as possible. And I've decided that online programs are the easiest and the most effective way to reach many children. Coordikids relies on many years of experience, on the latest research and evidence-based practice to ensure that the information we provide, our programs and our advice are the best and the most relevant to help your child and all the children in your care. So anxiety affects many of us and of our children at different stages of life. Anxiety prevents a child from thriving, from enjoying life and from participating in typical play. There are of course many underlying issues and a number of different types of anxiety, which we shall discuss shortly. I am an occupational therapist with experience and knowledge in sensory processing disorder, which can or cannot create anxiety. I am certainly not a psychologist, and therefore I have tapped the brain of a marriage and family therapist, Ron Huxley, from Shell Beach in California. Ron has extensive experience in supporting children and families who have experienced trauma and anxiety. So I have all these details at the handout. So if you are listening to the recording and you need Ron's details, you can go on the internet to Ron Huxley at the one from California, and you can also visit his website, Parenting Toolbox. So then last night I asked who the people are who attended, and the poll indicated that most of the people were parents. We had a few teachers and we had many therapists as well, and then we had a small percentage of adults with sensory processing disorder, which is great because they can communicate so much better how they feel and compare how they feel to how people feel who don't have sensory processing disorder. So I love to tap the adult's brain to understand the children better as well. Okay, so let's get back to anxiety, and I want to provide you with some of the tips that Ron has provided. So first of all, there are several types of anxiety disorders, including panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, specific phobias, and also generalized anxiety disorder. Anxiety is a normal human emotion that everyone experiences at times. Many people feel anxious or nervous when faced with a problem at work, or when faced with technical problems when you present a web clinic like last night, when faced with some when you take a test, or when you have to make important decisions. And that is perfectly normal, and it actually helps us to improve our decision making. But anxiety disorders, however, are different. They can cause such distress that it interferes with a person's ability to lead a normal life, and then it becomes a huge problem. An anxiety disorder is a serious mental illness, and you need a team to support you. For people with anxiety disorders, worry and fear are constant and overwhelming, and it can be crippling. So it's important to distinguish between a full-on anxiety disorder and just between feelings of anxiety every now and then. So what are the symptoms of anxiety? So it's feelings of panic, of fear and uneasiness. And these symptoms vary depending on the type of anxiety disorder, but general symptoms are the following, like sleeping disorders, cold or sweaty hands or feet, shortness of breath, your heart rate might go up, difficulty to be still and calm. Then you might experience a dry mouth, even numbness or tingling in the hands or feet. You might feel a bit nauseous, muscle tension, or even feelings of dizziness can all be associated with anxiety. So Ron Huxley has an event coming up called the 9 Anxiety Tools, and I have all the information for you if you want to attend that. It was one of the handouts, so if you are interested in that, please contact me and I will just email that to you. So Ron was kind enough to provide some tools for us when you and your child are anxious, and he identified 9 tools. So I'm going to discuss 4 of those 9. First of all, take care of your body. Take care of yourself, and that's for adults, the parents, and the children. You need to eat right. You need to get enough sleep, exercise, and avoid alcohol, nicotine, sugars, and excesses of caffeine. Regularly get a physical checkup, and begin noticing what is happening to your body when you are feeling anxious, and keep a journal so that you can identify the triggers that will create anxiety. Then the second one is pause and breathe. And when you are anxious, that is very difficult to do, but it is very effective. Just to take a break, just to pause, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and apparently it is more calming when you breathe in faster than when you breathe out. So take a long time to breathe out, and that really relaxes the body. So several occasions throughout the day, take time to pause and breathe. You can even set your alarm for every couple of hours to take a couple of minutes to put everything down and just take 10 good inhales and exhale breaths. And notice what is happening inside of you and around you. And just forget about the anxiety-provoking event. And then Ron says, detect and redirect. So play detective by cluing into what you are thinking or saying to yourself when you are feeling anxious. When you observe those first feelings of anxiety in yourself or in your child, check what you are saying to your child and check what you're saying to yourself. Are you saying, oh, I'm going to have an anxiety attack, here it comes, or are you saying, I'm feeling a bit anxious, so I need to step back, I need to take a pause, I need to breathe slowly, I need to put some other strategies in place to reduce the anxiety. And then the fourth one, which I love, is Ron says, put a lid on it. So this tool uses visualization. It helps us to refocus on what is currently going on in life before the anxious thoughts interrupted you, and then to move on from it. So you identify those thought processes, you identify your negative thoughts, you think through it, you use visualization to actually put those negative thoughts in a container, put the lid on the container, and then move on and carry on with your day, because then all the negative thoughts are in that container, of course, in your mind. So I think it would be great to listen to the other ideas that Ron has and to step through all 9 anxiety tools at a slower pace than I just did. So yeah, so okay, so that is anxiety. So let's get to sensory processing disorder. And I've had many previous web clinics on sensory processing disorder and different aspects of it. We spent a whole section on the sensory modulation disorder, so we had a number of web clinics covering that. And then we also have had a number of web clinics on the sensory-based motor disorder, called specifically the one on dyspraxia. So you can ask me for those links to those web clinics if you want to, but I just want to share some of the research with you. So there was a study done on children who were born between 1995 and 1997, and they were of between 7 and 10-year-olds, and they had symptoms of sensory processing disorder, and specifically the sensory over-responsitivity. And they say that those symptoms stayed in the kids in 1 of 6 children. So 1 in every 6 children had a form of sensory processing disorder. And an earlier study in younger children found that 1 in 20 children had those symptoms, which is interesting, and I would love to read more on that research study, but to me it shows that in the younger child the symptoms is not as clear as in the older child, because they did also studies and they saw that the characteristics of sensory processing disorder, and specifically the SOR, the sensory over-responsivity, are stable, and it most often continue from 1 year through to 8 years of age in children who are not treated. So at 1 year, many of the symptoms of sensory processing disorder are completely within the typical developmental ranges. So you don't identify the problem that easily. But if you see some of the problems and you don't treat it, then by the time the child is 8, 1 in 6 children have it. So that tells me that the symptoms actually becomes more clear as the child matures and as you expect them to have better self-regulation. If a child of 8 years reacts to a situation in the same way that a child of 1 or 2 years react, we would say he's emotionally immature and he can't self-regulate, whereas for a 1 or 2-year-old it will be acceptable behavior. The other study is also that individuals with the over-responsivity have been reported to be 4 times more likely to also have internalizing problems, such as anxiety, and 3 times more likely to have externalization problems, such as aggression. So it's important to address these issues. If you see these issues in your very young child, don't listen to people that say, he will mature and it will disappear. It will probably not. By 8 years old, the symptoms will just be much more clear and much more difficult to address. So step in as early as possible and sort them out as a child matures. It's much easier. We love to see the young 1 to 3-year-olds in therapy because they are just amazing to work with because they react so quickly and they overcome their problems fairly soon. Okay, let's have a look at the sensory modulation disorder. That has to do with your self-regulation. So if you have a problem if you have a disorder, then you'd have problems with self-regulation. That can create meltdowns, anxiety, concentration and attention, movement seeking or movement avoiding. The child can be easily overwhelmed by all kinds of things in the environment or in the body. The child is usually very sensitive. We can talk about the sensitive personality, but they're very sensitive to all kinds of things, all kinds of emotional reactions. and also these people might have a very high or a very low pain threshold. They might have sleeping or toileting issues. Often they have problems with social skills, and they are in general over or under responsive. And then these symptoms can fluctuate from day to day and from hour to hour, which makes it really difficult to understand these children. And that's why I love to talk to adults with these symptoms, because they can explain it very well, where a child can't explain it, they just feel it. And when you listen to adults with these problems, you can see the same things in children, and you can understand the children better, and hopefully you can help them in a better way. So I've said there they are over or under responsive, and they have high or low pain thresholds. So let's have a look at the sensory thresholds. So you have people with high thresholds, and you have people that have, in general, low thresholds for the sensory input in the environment and in their bodies. So the optimal thresholds are between the high and the low thresholds there. And that's the optimal for self-regulation and functioning, and that is where most of us function throughout the day. And sometimes your thresholds are a little bit higher and you can be a little bit more sleepy. Sometimes the thresholds are a little bit lower and you can be very alert or anxious and have higher sensitivities. So in general, the high threshold children and people are the sensory seekers. They have in general low registration and they have limited awareness. And then the low thresholds have high alertness levels. They are easily overwhelmed, usually oversensitive, anxious and defensive. And as I said, you can have this in the same person on the same day, and it can change from sensation to sensation, but also within the same sensation. So it can be really confusing. In general, high thresholds have poor attention, they can daydream, and they are the movement seekers. The low thresholds are the people who get into the fright and flight response very easily. Anxiety and avoiding behaviors are observed in them. This is explained in much more detail in the web clinic on sensory processing disorder. So then you get the sensory-based motor disorder. So what does these people look like? First of all, they are in general a little bit clumsy. They might just have an awkward gait when they walk, or they might just not be that good in sport activities, or they might just, be the person who would, bump a glass of water and bump into a glass of water, or fall over their own feet, or bump into furniture, that kind of thing. They often use exaggerated or diminished force. So in children, we often see with the exaggerated force that they hold the pencil very tightly, press very hard on the paper, and very firm marks on the paper, and then the diminished force is, of course, the opposite. These people often don't know where to start with any activity. When you ask a child to tidy the room, they will sit there at a loss with no idea where to start and how to do it. And when they have to start to play a game or do an assignment, they just don't get going. They don't know where to start and how to go from the starting point to the next step, which is to follow a sequence. So they don't have the steps of a task in place. They find it difficult to follow instructions. So if you give them 1 or 2 instructions, they're okay, but don't expand to 3 or 4 instructions, because then they forget half of them. And it looks as if this, especially in children, as if they didn't listen. It looks as if they don't behave very well, but it's just because they can't follow that sequence. And they often are engaged in inappropriate play with toys. They might even break toys without really trying to break it. It's just that they don't play with it in the correct way, and they find it really difficult to follow the rules of a game. So that will impact on their social skills. So in general, the sensory-based motor disorders, these people have difficulty to navigate this world, and their bodies don't want to do what their brains tell them to do. So there's one of my assessment is we call it the Kinesis, but that's not important. It's a rapid clapping of the hands from the palm to the back of the hand, and you have to repeat that in a sequence. And if I see it so often in children who have the problem with sequencing, that their hands just got mixed up, and they look at their hands. It's just like, I didn't tell my hands to do this. I didn't want them to do this, but they did their own thing. And I see that very often with kids up to 10 years old. And of course, what happens then if your body doesn't want to listen to what your brain tell your body to do? Then you get anxiety, because it's really, really difficult to focus on something, to try to do something, and it just doesn't work out. So let's get back to the relationship between sensory processing and anxiety. And I just want to put a little bit of neurology in here. So let's have a look at what system in our body creates anxiety. And we talk about the autonomic nervous system. So this is a part of the nervous system that regulates key involuntary functions of the body. And that includes the heart muscle, the smooth muscles in the body, and the glands. The autonomic nervous system has two divisions. The one is the sympathetic nervous system, which accelerates the heart rate, it constricts the blood vessels, and it raises blood pressure. And then the parasympathetic nervous system, which slows the heart rate, increases intestinal and gland activity, and it relaxes the sphincter muscles. So when studying anxiety attacks and phobias, we should make a distinction between real fear and irrational fear. When we are faced with something like a tiger in your garden, we encounter real fear. Or if you have grief, or if you are rejected by a loved one, the body floods the system with adrenaline, and that's the hormone of strenuous action, and that's the hormone that creates the fight or flight reaction. And then this is because the adrenaline activates the sympathetic nervous system, and it actually helps us deal with danger. So if there is a real danger, like a tiger in your garden, it will be good to have that adrenaline in your body, because that will prevent you from leaving your house, and it will encourage you to problem solve and see, I need to call somebody to remove this tiger. Whereas if you didn't have that, you will probably look at the tiger, oh, there's a tiger in my garden, and carry on with you and walk out to your car, and the tiger might eat you. So it is very important for our survival to have this fight or flight reaction and the adrenaline when there is a real situation. But what happens with anxiety attacks is that sometimes there are no real danger, but you still feel like that. And the important thing is that these reactions are beyond our control of consciousness, and we cannot decide that I'm going to be scared now or I'm not going to be scared. It takes a lot of strategies to calm you down and to get you out of the situation. Okay, I think that is what I wanted to say about this. So we cannot just decide that we're not going to have anxiety, or we are going to have anxiety. It's more than that. So the strategies that we use are also to control the adrenaline in the body, so that we can prevent ourselves to get into the fight or flight reaction. So then in the real webinar, I just ask how the people are doing. I ask questions like, do you understand sensory processing disorder? Do you understand anxiety? Most of them confirmed that they did. And also the other question was, are you ready to listen to strategies to help your child or yourself? And almost 100% said yes. So let's continue. And the strategies to help with anxiety, I'm going to cover the following. First of all, I'm going to talk about the anxiety curve, then zones of self-regulation, just tap into sensory triggers. the individual sensory needs, and then some sensory strategies, but very briefly because I've covered a lot of them in the previous web clinics on specific modulation disorders, and then just something about how to label emotions, and then a little bit about social stories. So let's have a look at the anxiety curve. I found this on Google Images, and I think this is great. There wasn't a name on it, so whoever designed this and put this together, it's great. Thank you so much, and we can certainly use this. So at the bottom is number 1. That's the green number 1, and this is the foundation of self-regulation or of anxiety. This is the time when the child and the adult are feeling very well, they are in control, they can control their emotions, they feel calm, and this is a good state to be in. And the bottom curve, this is the one where you want to stay, your parent or the care provider wants to stay on this curve. So even if the child will move up to number 5, you still want to stay on this one. So you have to observe yourself and see what you can do to ensure that you can stay in that state. You have to observe your own reactions to the sensations in the environment. You have to practice and see what will help for you to stay calm, even if your child escalates up to number 5. And I can tell you it takes a lot of energy. As therapists, we sometimes have to do it. If a child slowly moves up to 5, you can step in along the way and prevent that. But sometimes it happens in a few seconds. And when you just look up and you see the child have moved from 2 to 5, and then you have to be in this calm state, and it takes a lot of energy. And I've seen many therapists just getting out of a session like that and say, oh, that was so hard, because you have to control yourself. And as a parent, you have to do that sometimes a few times per day. So you have to look after your own anxiety as well. So number 2 is, this is the early stress, and this is the best time to refocus and get the person's attention away from the stress factor. This is to use the calm and redirection at number 2. So that's the best place to step in. You can't see that number 2 is happening in a person if you're not observing them very well. So your observation skills should be sharpened and should be very good to observe those little changes in a child or in a person or in yourself to identify that I'm getting a little bit anxious. This is the way I feel now, because I'm presenting and I'm a little bit nervous, but it's good because it prevents me from daydreaming and from dozing off. That's good. That's still a good anxiety to have, but it shouldn't escalate to number 3. Because if it goes to number 3, then you need to leave. You need to get out of the situation. You need to move away from whatever is causing the stress. As a care provider or parent, you can use encouraging, supportive words. Don't discuss the incident. Don't talk about the noisy environment. Just talk about you're doing very well. Your behavior is excellent. Let's go for a walk outside. I can see your anxiety is picking up a little bit. Let's just go outside, do some yoga stretches, do some deep breathing. Just get into a quiet area, and then if you feel like it, we can come back. Then number 4 is when the person is really getting a little bit anxious now. It's not time to discuss any issues with this person at that time. It's no time to ask him to make choices, no time to ask, do you want to leave or don't you want to leave? It's the time to take the child's hand and just leave, get outside in a quiet place and get him as calm as possible, as quickly as possible. So then you have to put in all your calming strategies, and we'll talk about that later. Then at number 5, this is the time when a child has a full-on attack, hitting, throwing, biting, can swear, can kick, can cry, just fall apart. And this is like a peak anxiety, and it's not a time to talk to this person. It's not a time to problem solve. It's just a time to help them to calm down, whatever it takes. So of course the easiest is to get into number 2 and try not to go to number 3. Number 2 is a time when they're very alert, they can concentrate very well, they can participate in many activities quite well, but you don't want them to get to number 3. So this is really good. If you can't print you can ask me for this because it's on Google Images, but sometimes you can't find the stuff again. So if you want this one, I can send it to you. It's a really good one. And once again, for whoever did it, I love it. Okay, what we often use in therapy sessions are the zones of self-regulation to teach a child that if you are in the green zone, it means your self-regulation is very good, you can concentrate, you can focus, you can participate, but your body is in a calm state. If you go to the blue area, that's the rest area, that's a time when you feel a little bit dizzy, sleepy, you can be dozing off a little bit, your registration is a little bit too low to make effective contributions to the activity. The yellow means that number 3 on the curve that we've just explained. I'm picking up anxiety levels are getting higher, my self-regulation is getting a little bit out of control, I need to step back to green zone. And then you teach them strategies to do and sensory strategies that they can use to get back to the green zone. When they get to the red zone, they need, that's the top part, the 4 and the 5 on the anxiety curve. On the zones of regulation, we just say you're in red, you need to get back to green, and what strategies can you do to get back in green. But once again, when they reach red, it's actually not a good time to talk and it's not a good time to make decisions. So that's the time that you should just help the child to get back to green. And once he's back in green, then you can discuss what happened and then you can discuss future strategies. But don't try to reason with the child in the red zone. It won't work. Then another one that you can use for the zones of self-regulation is like the inside out movie characters, and I love that because many of the kids have seen the movie and then they can relate to the characters rather than to the words. The words are there, I think, more for the parent or the teacher. Don't expect a child to read all of that. Especially a child with some language issues, just use the characters and they can relate to that. Another thing that's great to use is just a mini clip chart. And I'm just thinking of the older kids. They can have something like that in their pocket and they can just move it up and down for themselves to identify where am I and where should I be and what can I do to get back to green all the time. So that's a lovely thing for older children. Also, older children wouldn't like to, and adults wouldn't like to use the characters. We used to use the Winnie the Pooh characters, but now Inside Out is there. So the Winnie the Pooh are also great characters to use. But you can use just colors. And you can explain the colors, and a good way to do it is like when a child is escalating, you can say, point to the yellow, you are in yellow now, let's do something to get you back into green. So, and I'll get to what is that something. Okay, so this is also for the older child, and I think this is great, a cookie catcher. There are lots of templates on the internet, so you can make something like this, and then you have the zones of regulation there, but on the inside, you can see what to do when you are in that zone. So this, at the green zone, this is where you want to be. So the feelings are you feel good, okay, calm and ready for work or ready to play or ready for whatever task is at hand. But then the coping skills would be to stay in the green zone. What can you do? You can use a stress ball, fidget toy, you can sit on a ball. That will help you to stay in the green zone. Every child will have different strategies. There are a few that every person can use, but every child uses different strategies, and those are explained very well in all the web clinics on the sensory modulation disorders. So then you can go to the yellow zone and the blue and the red, and it's great to use these, and the older children can play with it. And just to make this card, I think will help them a lot. But of course, the child needs to have a good language skills. They need to love to read and to write, otherwise they won't find this activity exciting at all. Okay, next one is the sensory triggers. So how are we using sensory processing to help with anxiety? So we know that sensory issues and modulation disorder can encourage anxiety, but how can we use it to reduce the symptoms of anxiety? So first of all, we look at the sensory triggers in the child. The idea is to minimize the sensory triggers that create anxiety and to maximize the triggers that create a calmness and effective self-regulation. So you have to observe the child or the adult to identify these triggers. And if you listen to the other web clinics, observe, observe, observe is so important. And we have been taught observation skills as from my first year at uni, and I can just understand why they did that, because if you don't observe very well, you cannot implement very good strategies. Okay, so we talk about the 8 senses, and first of all, vision. So a child can be overstimulated. They can be easily distracted by too many visual stimuli, and they can get very tired because of a visually very busy environment. Then the tasting, taste can trigger. Although I haven't heard too much about that, what I've heard, the texture in food, that can trigger anxiety. Smells can definitely trigger anxiety. So if a child tells you that something smells horrible, don't say you're talking nonsense, because that you don't know what they smell. So if they're smelling it, their sensations might be much more accurate than ours, because they often have low thresholds, so they can actually smell things that we can't really smell, and they can hear things that we can't really hear. Okay, so the next one is hearing. And noise levels are often a big problem. High noise levels can really trigger anxiety and can really be very, very difficult for many people to cope in. And also then touch, different sensations of touch. So touch can trigger anxiety, especially light touch. Deep pressure and heavy weighted touch usually calms down and reduces the anxiety. So these are all sensations that tell us more about the environment around our bodies. Then we have 3 sensations that tell us about what is going on inside our bodies. So the first one is proprioception, that tells us about the position of the body. Its messages sent from the muscles and the joint to the brain, and so that the brain can know in which position our body is. The other one is movement sensations, to tell the brain in which direction we're moving, how fast are we moving, and then interoception, which tells us about what is going on inside the body. So that has an effect on sleeping and toileting. It can, some kids just are hungry all the time. Some kids are just never hungry and they never feel like eating food. That kind of thing is the interoception. So the other word is body awareness. Okay, so how can you help? First of all, individual sensory needs, and that is your observation skills once again. So observe, 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 and see observe yourself and observe your child, and see what are the sensory needs of your child and your own sensory needs. And I've often seen couples where the husband is a seeker. He loves to be amongst people. He loves activity. He loves to participate in many things. He loves noise. He put the TV on too loud. And then you get the wife is the avoider, and she prefers to curl up with a book in a quiet spot. And then there's a lot of clashes between them because of that. But once you can identify that it's only sensory needs, nobody is wrong and nobody is correct. You just have to help each other to address those sensory needs, then it makes a huge difference. So you get the sensory avoiders, which might be the wife curling up with a book, and the sensory seeker, who might be the husband, wanting to go to another party, another function, and wants to watch another program on the TV with the sound loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Okay, so both, I'm just going to quickly say about avoiders and seekers, what strategies we can use in general. If you want more focused strategies, then listen to the other web clinics on sensory modulation disorders. So slow rhythmical movements are always a very good strategy to calm down. So you can rock over a exercise ball, a Swiss ball. You can go on a swing forward, linear movements, forward and backwards, slow and rhythmical are always calming. In a hammock, slow rhythmical movements are always calming. Deep pressure, heavy weighted things on top of you, a tight hug, that kind of thing, always calming. The use of your jaw muscles. There's a good reason why babies are calmed down by pacifiers, are calmed down by sucking on a bottle, because the jaw muscles are very much helping us to relax and to reduce anxiety and to self-regulate. So many of us like to chew gum. Chewing gum when we are anxious. Many of us like to eat. Personally, I like to eat crunchy stuff like nuts, and that helps me to regulate. So yeah, don't, and many kids are chewers and they just chew on anything and they mouth objects. So that might be something that they do in order to self-regulate. And then deep breathing, as I have said before, is also a very good strategy. Regular exercise and the sensory motor movements are excellent to reduce anxiety. So if you are prone to anxiety, make sure that you do very regular exercise, like once a day or twice a day, and the sensory motor movements, use them to reduce anxiety levels. And the beauty of that is that the Coordikids programs address those sensory motor movements and the sensory motor skills. It not only improves the skills, but it also reduces anxiety. Good. The next one is another one, how to help, is to label emotions. So you can, that one is also from Google Images, and you can use that. It's quite good. You can even use photos of the child when they experience different emotions, or that might be a little bit daunting, but you can use different pictures of people. But what I really like is something like this. I have something like this in my in the therapy room, and I don't have the words underneath because many of the kids that we see is not very good with language and with words and with reading, and then it put a specific emotion to a face. I just use these faces. I've put them on cards of about 5 by 5 centimeters and laminated them. And I use them to help kids to label emotions. So they would do an activity, and after the activity I would ask them to choose a face. How did they feel on that activity? And they have lots of fun in therapy, of course, so usually they choose all the happy faces. But then I would put some challenges to them which they find really hard and perhaps a little bit unpleasant, so that they can choose other faces, and so that we can name and label the emotion. Once you know an emotion, you can own it, and then you can control it. If you have a feeling and you don't know what it is, and you don't know what's happening in your body, and you don't know why you feel what you feel like, it can create a lot of anxiety and a lot of tension in yourself. But the moment that you label it, okay, I'm nervous because I'm going to write a test in an hour. That's what I'm feeling. I'm anxious. Okay, now I have the feeling. When I'm anxious, what can I do? I can do deep breathing. I can do a few stretches. I can walk out of a very busy environment. So as soon as you label an emotion or a feeling, then you can control it, and then you can take hold of it. So what I also do with these faces, that because there aren't any words underneath it, a child might choose one like the one, say, that's thoughtful, the right-hand corner, the second one from the right side. That little face, if I choose that face, I can use it to discuss it. I can see, oh, you know, that face, so you feel like that. Okay, there's a little smile, so you're not angry, are you? No, not angry. Your eyes are quite small. Is it your eyes halfway closed? Do you feel a little bit sleepy? So you can talk about it, and you can encourage the child to talk about it and to label it. And that helps the child to work through emotions and to work through their feelings. Okay, the next one is the social stories. Social stories are great. So this is an example of one. It's very good, especially to use the pictures for kids who aren't verbal, because then they can just walk through it, or kids that have very poor verbal skills or very poor language skills, and that helps them to prepare for whatever is going to happen. So this one is great for a child, obviously, that can use language, but it's just like if someone is hurting or annoying me, I will first of all look at them. I won't look away, because then you get to be a target for a bully. I will look at them and look at them in the eyes if at all possible, which is very difficult for some kids. I will put my hand up in a stop sign, and then I will say, stop it, I don't like it. And then if that doesn't work, I will get help from a teacher. The beauty of this is you can role play it at home, or at school, and you can take turns to be the teacher and to be the child, and you can role play it until it is just a really automatic response from the child. Okay, then you can prepare a child for something like a doctor's visit. So you can use something like that to prepare the child. You can use real life photos. If you have a photo of the doctor, I've had many children or many parents who took a picture of me to put it on the child's folder where all the occupational therapy stuff goes in, and then when they pick up the folder, the child will know we're going to see Marga, and we're going because that's my picture on there. So that's a good way to prepare a child. And then you can do something like this, going to the grocery store, and you can make a little booklet with pictures in it. What I love nowadays is, of course, we have the smartphones, we have the apps. There are lots of apps for social stories, and you can use that, and you can use real pictures. So you can take a photo of your car, you can take a photo of your supermarket, you can take a photo of the supermarket trolley that you're going to use, and it will make it really easy for the child. And I've had even, people doing consultations on Skype, whom I could help to put things like this together, and it worked so well to prepare the child for whatever they're going to do that day, and it reduced the meltdowns and the anxiety attacks to a minimal. Okay, so there was a question sent to me before about an 11-year-old girl who found it very, very difficult to meet unfamiliar people. So for an 11-year-old child who is verbal, I wouldn't use pictures unless she wants to draw the pictures or she wants to take the photos and put them together. That will be a good activity. But for the rest, you can just talk to her through things. So just talk about before you meet the unfamiliar person, if it is at all possible. If you bump into them in the street, it's not possible, but to prepare. But if they are coming to your home, you can do you can use the strategies to prevent anxiety before they arrive. So you use the deep pressure, use the slow movement, deep breathing, some stretches. And then when the people arrive, practice, role play, look them in the eyes and say good day or hello or whatever you want her to say. Then again, while waiting for the person to answer, take a deep breath, slowly breathe out, and then focus on the other person. It's so much easier to reduce the anxiety if you focus on the other person and not on yourself. So how to focus on the other person? tell her to look at their hair color, look at the clothes they're wearing, look at the gestures that they're making, listen to what they're saying, look at their facial expression. Take the attention away from yourself. That reduces anxiety as such. Then you can answer a question if the person asks a question, or you can ask, how are you? Or how has your day been? And then encourage her to say one sentence, like something in the environment, about the weather, about an activity that that person just did or that she just did. And then before the situation becomes too much for her, she can excuse herself politely and remove herself from the area, if that is appropriate. I would, if the child finds it very difficult, if new people arrive, expect of her to be in that company for a very short period of time. Then she can leave and then do the same thing, same strategy, to come back at a later stage. And even if she just comes back and observe what's going on and not participate, that's okay. Then she can leave again and then come back when the people leave, and you do the same exercise, the same routine when they leave, to look at them, take a deep breath, say goodbye, remove yourself politely. Then this, of course, gives you the opportunity to discuss this meeting. So she needs to discuss it with her parent regarding her own presentation, regarding the tone of voice that she used, regarding the other person's reaction. Sometimes other people can be quite rude, and don't hesitate to indicate to your child, did you see how rude he was with you? That's not good. Don't ever be like that. And so that the child knows that you are on her side and not on the other person's side, especially if it is a rude person. And then it gives you the opportunity to ask some questions, but it also provides her with the opportunity to ask you questions. And then you can discuss what can be changed to make it easier for her next time. And then please remember, do not criticize, but support, support, and support, and support. I hope that answered your question, Sandy. Okay, so just to recap, first of all, identify the level of anxiety. Go to the anxiety curve or the zone of self-regulation. Identify the triggers, sensory, emotional, and social, in your child and in yourself. Know that there are individual sensory differences in different environments, and you and your child might react completely different. As I explained, sometimes the husband and wife react quite differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you have to identify that so that you can put the correct strategies in place. So then you identify the zone of self-regulation, you implement the strategies towards a green zone, and then you consider the deep pressure, the movement, the exercise, the breathing, and the mindfulness. You can bring in mindfulness, and yoga poses and yoga stretches can be very helpful as well. You need to label any emotions, and you can use social stories to prepare the child, and you can use that to role play and practice situations at home in a very safe environment. Okay, let's have a look at what then can you do to reduce anxiety in general. Have a healthy diet and a balanced diet. Relax and sleep for about 6 to 8 hours. Children need 9+ hours, and teenagers need even more. Use deep breathing techniques regularly throughout the day. As I said, you can even put your alarm on every 2 hours and take a few deep breaths and just relax. Exercise. Parents should set an example of being active. If you exercise regularly every day, go for a walk, or twice a day go for a walk or a run, that sets an example for your children, and they will follow your example. And it also enhances your child's development. So regular exercise is just excellent, and it really reduces the anxiety levels. Then laugh. It is, after all, the best medicine. So in your family, you need to create opportunities to laugh often, just to be silly and to enjoy life and to enjoy each other. Don't miss that because you are so tense because of all the problems that you're facing with your child. Make sure that you get time to laugh and just to have fun as well. And if you can do it with your child, so much better. So consider the sensory needs, whether you and your child are seekers or avoiders, and consider these needs of all family members, not only the ones who are prone to anxiety. All members have different needs, sensory needs, and you need to accommodate that. So just keep in mind that anxiety makes us pay attention and be vigilant. Anxiety provides feedback in response to risky situations. It can help to make choices, to reduce or to eliminate anxiety. And it can help us to make very good choices, like when there is a tiger in your garden. And also anxiety encourage us to make good assessments. It encourages us to problem solve and to evaluate our present situation. So there are many positive things about anxiety. Anxiety is not something that you need to run away from. It's just that you need to keep it on the correct level so that you can use it to your own advantage and to the advantage of your child and of the people around you. So why do we say that sensory motor exercises will help with anxiety? So I'm reading a book at the moment. I haven't finished it, unfortunately. The book's name is Sensory Motor Psychotherapy by Janina Fisher and Pat Ogden. And this book is so great. There are so many new research studies on sensory motor skills, and so many people understand nowadays that the sensory motor skills are really the foundation of development. And without that, you cannot use your cognitive skills very well. You cannot control your emotions very well. You need those sensory motor skills. And for me, who have had an interest in this for so many years, it's just so great to hear and to listen to all the research that people are doing at the moment. So this book is blending together the theory and the technique from cognitive, affective, and psychodynamic therapy to help clients to become aware of their body. So we in occupational therapy terms talk about body awareness, to track their bodily sensations and to implement physical actions that promote empowerment and competency. And that is just like music to my ears. So these people use the techniques such as centering and grounding and containment and then core alignment. Then also they use posture, and they say that a good posture makes us feel good about ourselves and about others and about the world around us. Then the somatic sense of boundaries, what we as OTs call body awareness, the physical body. Where is the boundaries of my physical body? And that's the proprioceptive sense that tells you where are your feet, where are your hands, what are your feet doing, in which position are your knees at the moment. So, and then also to restore action and to empower action. They use the sensory motor skills to do that. So they say that faulty neuroception leads to dysregulation. And in my words, it would be dyspraxia. Dyspraxia leads to dysregulation because then you cannot control the body. Then sensory motor sequencing is very, very important, and that is what we use so many times. As I said, if a child has dyspraxia problems or problems with praxis, then they sequencing is not very well developed and they cannot remember 4 instructions in a row and they cannot plan, and that's the sensory motor sequencing that they are talking about here in this book. And then also moving through the world, how we walk, our walking gait, how we use our bodies in different actions and in different activities. So they say the movement, the posture, and the physiology of the body adapt automatically to assure survival and to maximize all the resources that you can use. And that just leaves you to be a happy, a well-regulated, well-functioning person. So you might wonder why I've put all of those in that bright, bold pink. But I did that because all of the pink ones are covered by the Coordikids programs. And isn't that amazing? I think you might imagine how I felt when I read this while reading this book, because it's just like I've put the Coordikids programs together 4 or 5 years ago. We started to sell them about 3 years ago. And now I'm reading this book, and she just says everything that we've put in the program is so good for you in psychology terms as well, not only in physical and occupational therapy terms. So it's really great to know that. Okay, so I think I came to the end of all the information and the content I want to give you. So the next part is to answer your questions. So the first question was the one that I have already answered about the 11-year-old boy. Sandy, thank you so much for sending this question in. I think I answered it partially, but I know you have an appointment with me, so we can discuss that a little bit later again. So other questions I just want to answer is, first, for what ages would you suggest implementing these anxiety strategies? Oh, you can start really, really young. So in the very young child of even younger than 4, 3, 2-year-olds, if you see that anxiety is escalating, and if you think of the anxiety curve or the zones of self-regulation, you can put in the deep pressure strategies from baby years. It can't harm anybody. Why do we rock a baby to calm them? That's linear, slow rhythmical movements, and that calms a baby. So yeah, from day dot you can use it. Okay, the next question is, what would you do? My daughter is both seeker and avoider. Oh, we see that so often. You can book in a session with me to discuss your specific strategies, or you can just ask for the links to the recordings of the webinars on the modulation disorders, and we can just see which when your child is a seeker and when an avoider. Sometimes it is with different sensations, so she might be an avoider when it comes to textures in the mouth, but she might be a seeker when it comes to movement, or she might be a seeker of movement at times and an avoider of movements at other times. So we can just discuss that, and I can help you to put strategies in place. Then, is it possible for a child age 6 with SPD to completely hold it together at school, but then lose it when they come home? I'm sorry, I can't see the rest of the question here. So yes, absolutely. We see that often. We see that, yeah, it's very, very common to hold it together at school, to be a perfect student in school, and when they can get home, they have meltdowns. I've had mums who take video recordings of the child at home so that the teacher and I can actually believe what she's saying, because for us it was just this perfect child in front of us, no problem at all, and then at home she really fell apart. But they literally hold themselves together, and then they can't do that anymore. So for that child it will be great to do the movement breaks and the some strategies to reduce anxiety levels during the day at school, but it depends on her sensory profile when and where you would do that. But in general, 2-hourly breaks from whatever they're doing to do some relaxation, to do a movement break, that usually helps them to control the anxiety throughout the day. And then this question I cannot read. I have a son with SPD and anxiety, plus I'm a developmental educator. But I'm able to help him. So yeah, sorry about that question. And then the other one is, my son is afraid of being alone, even at our home. oh, there can be so many different things that can create that anxiety and of being afraid to be alone at home. You can talk to me about that, and please let us put in some strategies to help him, but we might need the guidance of a psychologist as well, because it might be a deeper thing. There might be some attachment problems, there might be some just generalized anxiety, separation anxiety, and that often has a deeper cause. So we just need to talk about that. If it's just a sensory thing, then I can certainly help you all by myself. And then there's one that said a 9-year-old who has sensory processing, but particular around food, and he has a very restricted diet. Yes, please send me an email once again so that I can send you the link to the recording of the web clinic on the picky eater. That will help you, and if not, or if you want more information, you can just book in a consultation with me and we can talk about that. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the recording of this, and let us know if you have any more questions or you need any more information. There are my details, and you can just contact us. Thank you so much, and goodbye.